should you sell your house or rent your house? I'm starting to get this question a lot more with people wanting to hang on to those 3 and 4% mortgages. And there's a couple of things you need to consider. 3 big things, honestly, up front. If you decide that those things work for you, then maybe renting the house out is a possibility. So let's talk about those 3 things. Number 1 is tax implication. The home you live in, your homestead, if you've lived there and the current rule is 2 out of the last 5 years, if you sell that house, you don't pay capital gains on the first $250,000 to $500,000, depending on if you're a single or married couple. So that is a lot of money to not pay capital gains on. If you move out of the house and you rent it out and you no longer have lived in the house 2 out of the last 5 years, or you've used it as an income producing property, when you sell it, then you will owe capital gains. Okay, so these laws change from time to time. Make sure you consult with your CPA. But that's the biggest one. Do you want to pay capital gains on the sale of your property, or do you want to not owe that? Number 2 is the 1% rule. Most people's homesteads are usually in a little bit higher price point. Some people, they're not. But what the 1% rule says is if your house is worth $500,000, you have to rent that for $5,000 a month. Okay, so there's a cap on how much people can rent houses for, Yeah, there are, exceptions to that rule with luxury homes, with maybe traveling nurses or some Airbnbs if it's in those areas. But for the most part, a good rental property is going to be the median price point home for the area, because you're going to have the most amount of renters, qualified renters, the most availability, and you're going to keep it rented. The higher you go up on that monthly rent, the harder it's going to be to rent and to keep it occupied. So is your home meeting that 1% rule? If it's not, then there are ways you can sell the house. And if you just want to be a landlord, you want to grow your investment portfolio, which I highly recommend to everybody. Side note, there are some videos on YouTube and TikTok and Facebook where I do like real estate in 30 seconds or less, where I teach you, basically the basics of investment property. But let's say you do want to start building your portfolio. You're usually better served selling your homestead, taking the money tax-free, and then buying either a property that looks just like it or not like just like it is a better rental property for cash, or using that money as a down payment on 2 or 3 rental properties to grow your portfolio, start cash flowing more, and start getting equity appreciation on 3 properties instead of just 1. So number 1, tax implication. Number 2, are you meeting the 1% rule? And is this home a good investment rental property, or is it maybe not so great? And then number 3, do you want to be a landlord? Most people don't actually want to be a landlord. They just want to own the investment property. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. You can pay a property management company, usually about 10%. If you need them to rent the unit and verify the tenant, then they'll charge the first month's rent typically. But I highly recommend it because you don't want to get calls at 2 o'clock in the morning when something's not working and you got to go fix it. Use a property management company. So do you want to be a landlord? Do you want to grow an empire? If you don't, then it doesn't really make sense to just keep one house and kind of halfway manage it and keep it occupied most of the time, only for 2 or 3 years later to say, yeah, I didn't want to do this, and then sell the house, pay the taxes, pay the depreciation recapture, you've had to maintain the property. So if you want to know more, please reach out. I'm happy to help. I say, and this is something I've done myself, right? So the home we lived in, we sold that home and then we used that tax-free money to reinvest in real estate. But I've never sold an investment property. So as a real estate broker, I'm telling you, and it's kind of counterintuitive, the only house you should ever sell is the one you live in. Never sell investment property, right? They don't make it. So my point is, if you need help, you have more questions, DM me, call me, text me. Pretty easy to find. Reply to the video. I'm happy to help any way I can. Thanks for listening.
Call Paul.